Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Champions Path, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using the code Omnipoke. For today's video, we're going to be talking about Logan Paul's booster box break. He set a record-breaking price of almost $200,000 to acquire this booster box, and he opened it live on stream. There was over 300,000 viewers live at the time, and now we're just shy of 7.4 million views on his very popular YouTube channel. He was able to generate over $130,000 for NAMI, raising awareness for that. I believe he also added in his own funds of $50,000, he said, on his stream, so fair play to him. He was able to create one of the most memorable box breaks we've ever had in the community. Obviously, we've recently had some other box breaks from PokeRev, but Logan Paul's is just on a different scale, really, and it's ultimately bringing a lot of different people into the hobby, for good or bad. I'm not here to judge. Today, we're going to be looking at the statistics behind his booster box and just how good it actually was. So feel free to watch the box if you haven't already. I really think it was an excellent spectacle, some very high quality camera work going on. His whole team was there. There was clapping in the background. It was real wholesome and nice to watch, and I was watching it live at the time. Obviously, I'm from the UK, so when the Charizard came up, I had to go to bed after that because it was quite late for me. But I've certainly gone back and watched all this. I literally had to have brought these statistics to you. But yeah, we're going to jump into a spreadsheet, and we're going to be looking at current PSA 9 and 10 prices. We're going to be looking at the expected value of Logan's box itself, as well as the breakdown pack per pack for everyone who actually opened one. As I've gone through the footage, literally written down every single card that everyone opened, and we're going to be looking at the winners, the losers, and the margins for all of those things as well. So just a quick thing on methodology here, how I've come to the numbers I've got in front of you, just in case you want to start trashing me in the comments below. That's all fine. I'm fully aware that there could have been stronger methodology for some of these things, but I'm hoping that this video and the numbers I've crunched will get us close to relevant data for where the first edition base set booster box should really be valued at right now, and the sort of value you can get out of the box, as well as Logan's particular booster box. So first of all, where did I get the prices from? Well, PokemonPrice.com and PSAcard.com, the auction section for PSA card, is looking at literally the latest sale price for PSA 9 and 10s. Now, there are flaws for this methodology. Obviously, the market is quite speculative right now, and the numbers that we're seeing today are vastly different from the start of the year. So these could be a temporary price. That being said, a knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people being exposed to the new box break that Logan has done could also mean that these prices could be a thing of the past in a month's time, where they could be dwarfed by new prices that are being set, because recently we've seen a lot of record prices be hit for certain cards. That brings me on to the second sort of issue with this. There are some cards that simply don't have sales data even in 2020. A key example is actually this Chansey card. It's why I had it on here from Logan. It's also a card that was pulled 3 times in his box, so it's actually super duper relevant for his box in particular. A PSA 10 hasn't sold on the open market in 2020. There's been private sales, there are numbers banded around, but the long and short of it is that the value here, the $4,950 for a PSA 10 price, is very outdated. I think a lot of people would expect it to be much higher. Obviously, you can see every other PSA 10 is a higher value except for Poliwrath, and due to the difficulty in acquiring Chansey, it's one of the lowest percentage 10 to 9 ratios, meaning it's very hard to grade. As you can see from all the others, you would expect this price to at least be 5 figures, I would say. It's not speculative to really say that, especially because there have been BGS sales of like 9 5s and 10s that have been quite high, definitely well above this. So that's an issue with Pokemon Price. I didn't want to just throw in like what I felt would be a more correct price, because I just wanted this to be as unbiased as possible. But do be aware there may be some cards that you look at and sort of question what the price would be. Chansey being the biggest outlier, I think, for the holos. Some of these may also look a little bit strange to you. I'm sure there'll be some numbers here that you won't be able to find on the open market right now for those sorts of numbers. But just something to bear in mind as you go down. There may be some that crop up that look a little bit strange to you in terms of where they sit. Obviously, there's red cheeks and yellow cheeks. Logan's box actually had no red cheek Pikachus. It's not uncommon for complete boxes to have none of them. Sometimes box will be full yellow cheeks, and that's just something that we have to bear in mind. Some boxes can have a mixture of red and yellow cheeks. Some can be just red cheeks, I believe. So yeah, but I'm just giving you a small breakdown of those sorts of things. Other things I've done in my methodology, I haven't put any PSA 8s on here. Now, you'd hope that fresh from a booster box would give you minimal PSA 8s. But as we know, PSA are quite strict. Holographics can have print lines. They can be off-center to the point that they can be docked 2 grades right now. I know that personally from some of my own WotC booster box openings. From back in the day, I've had plenty of cards that are off-center and it immediately gets docked to an 8. That's just something that can happen. But really, that's because I don't believe there's enough of a fleshed out pop report for me to know for certain how relevant 8s are. Also, I can't tell how many 8s have come directly from boxes and how many have been sat in collections for a long time and have been graded. That's the same for 9s and 10s, of course, but my hope is that when I'm doing the breakdown of the 9 and 10 chance for these sorts of cards, I hope it's relatively close, and most mint copies I'm thinking were either kept very well for a long time or have been more recently opened, obviously. But the majority of 10s and 9s, they've come many, many years ago, so something to bear in mind. A few other things for methodology. I put a flat rate grading fee of $10 per card. Now, you can get that on some third-party sites that I know of straight away. But of course, if you're putting in a Charizard for grading, it's going to have a higher value than the flat rate. But I just thought, for simplicity, a $10 flat rate would be relatively straightforward and easy to understand. And doing it across the board makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, I'd have to look specifically at each price breakdown and change the value as it goes. But this is more of a theoretical value anyway, so something to bear in mind. Speaking of theoretical value, it could take 6 months, the way PSA is right now, for the people who physically opened the packs to get their cards back, and the market could be vastly different from now to then. So again, these are more towards theoretical prices for today, and how happy or sad people can be for opening the packs that were opened and what they got inside them, rather than, a look at 6 months' time when everyone's, in theory got their grades back. I'm assuming a lot of people will be grading the contents of their packs because first ed base is pretty staple to be graded for the most part. It's very rare that people will have mint quality binder copies. Normally you'd get lower quality binder copies and grade the higher stuff. So yeah, that's enough rambling of methodology. Ultimately, I'm just trying to give you some excuses now. If there's something that you see that doesn't look quite right, just know that this is where I've got the information from. These are the things that I've made assumptions of, like the 9-10 chance. I'm crossing my fingers that people didn't get any 8s from their packs, and if 8s are in people's packs, it will be like one of their 11 cards, and serious fingers crossed that it's not the holographic or the rare, because that will certainly eat into their value. With all that said, here's what's going on in the spreadsheet. I've gone ahead and got the full base set list out here. For Logan's box specifically, I've put what was pulled and what wasn't pulled. So for the spoilers, yes, 12 holos were pulled, 3 Chanseys, 2 Blastoise, 1 Charizard, 1 Venusaur. Overall, some really, really good holographic pulls. I think, ticking off the big 3, Blastoise being a duplicate, and then also having 3 Chanseys, which many people would say is in at number 4, alongside like Mewtwo and Raichu. Those are kind of up there as well. Those are some really, really solid pulls, and avoiding Magneton is pretty good as well. Nidoking, there's some lower stuff. Like Poliwrath's really the only like dud holo, I guess you could say, where you sort of like slap your head and get baited that you didn't actually get the Charizard, get the Blastoise. So yeah, overall the holographics from the box were absolutely insane. And you can see I've got a PSA 9 and 10 price. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see here. And yeah, this is just pulled directly from Pokemon Price for most recent sales. I could have gone ahead and like made averages of like the month or the year for all of these cards, but I think it's really diminishing returns. The amount of time it would take for me to actually do all that stuff and the variance that would actually come out for the price. Like some will be higher, some will be lower, but you know, overall I think it balances out pretty reasonably, and I think all the figures total-wise make a lot of sense to me just from eyeballing. So yeah. Basically, with that, I've gone ahead and then got stats for Logan's box itself. If everything comes out of 9, if everything comes out of 10, obviously that will never happen, but that gives us basically a high and a low point for what Logan's box actually was. Then I've gone ahead and pulled the percent chance of 9 to 10s. Basically, I took every mint copy from the pop report of only PSA, haven't included BGS, and I've sort of done an inverse percentage. You know, if it's a mint copy, it's either a 10 or a 9, right? So it has to equal up to 100 each in each of these columns. And then we've done an actual value in air quotes. And that is certainly in air quotes. It's basically taking the chance of the 9 and the chance of the 10 and putting those prices like together. So obviously a card will only land in one of those grades, but the actual value is kind of trying to take a percentage of each of these and say that, like, realistically you're sitting more on the 9 side of things for the holographics just because of the percentages. Realistically, you're looking, you know, you got about a 50-50 shot of a common being a 10 or a 9, just based on the statistics that we have from PSA pop reports. So this is all stuff to bear in mind. And this value also takes into consideration like duplicates, of course. So you'll see if there's the 3 chances, it adds up here. So yeah, something to bear in mind. So yeah, that's what we're looking at here. And ultimately, basically, let's get to the grand totals, right? I've done some numbers down here, looking at where the box would be at. So Logan's box, if every card from Logan's booster box, his specific, you know, cards that he pulled in the video that we saw the stream, if everything came back a 9, it would be $109,629. If he completely high rolled and everything was a PSA 10, like he was saying during the stream, it would be a $363,245 return. And if it is somewhere in the middle, which is basically me saying if it's in line with the ratios that we know of 9 to 10 on the PSA registry right now, the box would actually be $189,168, which is actually really not far away from the price that he initially paid for the box. And bear in mind, he sold that box at $11,000 a pack, right? So he made his money. Like, there's no doubt about that. He did a great thing for the community. Everyone really enjoyed it. He did a great thing for charity as well. He made money, but let's not make a mistake here. He made a lot of money himself. Even though he bought a record high price, when you actually average it out, that record high price actually is pretty in line with where graded cards have got to in the last few weeks and months. So pretty interesting. I was very surprised by that. I thought it was going to be miles off just based on previous sales of first ed boxes and how often it's had that sort of 120,000 price tag most recently put towards it, and then that huge jump to 200k, and everyone thought it was an overpay and he was only doing it for this spectacle. But realistically, he wasn't far away, which is quite crazy. Just looking at the individual piecing out of cards, you can see, just as a point of interest, that if you were to try and buy a full PSA 9 set of the first ed base, you'd be looking at $71,390. You know, that may be wishful thinking. Like, good luck finding someone who will sell you that set for that amount. That's without the Machamp, by the way, because everything above is things that you can pull from the base set, which Machamp you can't. And same for PSA 10, $240,398 if you buy the complete PSA 10 base set. And that's piecing it all out for recent sales. Once again, that's where I'm pulling that figure from. I thought that was an interesting point of view and something to just mention, because there's always people debating opening packs, collecting sets, all that sort of stuff. And realistically, if your target in this world is to get a complete PSA 10 set of base first edition, you got a lot ahead of you. That's a pretty decent chunk of funds. but that's where we're at right now. Again, find someone who can say the complete base set. It's going to be nigh on impossible. You'll probably have to buy individual pieces, and it'll probably be over the course of a few years, just because of your own funds and people willing to sell, and the price point that you can actually get these cards at, etc., etc. But this is all theoretical values. Now let's look at the booster box and how I came about this. So like you saw with the individual percentages up here for each individual card, I then took an average of every holo, all 15 of the holos, every rare, every uncommon, common, and every energy. And this is the percentages of them coming back 10s. I actually thought this was pretty interesting. Something that you can bear in mind is that I believe realistically rares, uncommons, commons, and energies should, in theory, all have a very, very similar percent of 9 to 10. And what this is showing you is that basically there are still many more potential 9s to be graded out there to inflate that 9 ratio, because essentially energies and commons have the highest ratio, and basically that means there are people who have the cards raw, know that they would get 9s and didn't grade them because they weren't worth it to them. They would only try and get the 10, they'd only be collecting the 10, for example, and they would keep those 9 candidates for themselves and leave them ungraded for a time that was relevant. And that time may be coming soon, right, with where prices have got to. And what makes me say that is, there's a 20% difference between regular rares and energy cards. And that's because basically there are far fewer rares available than energy cards. So you basically get what you're given with the rare in terms of the card quality, whereas you can pick and choose between energy cards, right? So people are actually able to hold back energies, whereas there are so much fewer rares out there, they just have to take it as it is and send it in. So I would say most uncommons, I can see that I've misspelled something here. Most uncommons should be around that 30 to 35% ratio, but the commons and uncommons right now are at an inflated chance of a PSA 10, just because people have had the opportunity to cherry pick because there's so much more available than the other cards. So these ratios could actually be quite generous, and getting them straight out of a box may be lower than that 50% chance that we've currently got to go off of. So the average common and uncommon values may be inflated to what they would actually be. In general, another thing that I found that was interesting is that uncommons are actually less valuable on average than commons, and that's specifically because of how spiky the Pikachu and the 3 starters are. Those cards are ridiculously valuable compared to commons and uncommons, to be honest. So it's strange that from these averages at least, most people get more value out of, well, on average when you open a booster pack, you get more value out of the commons than the uncommons. Also, just the raw volume of commons that you open, that's actually, the commons as well as the holographics add up your value more than the other stuff, which is actually pretty crazy when you think about it. Most people just ignore the commons, and in other first edition WotC sets, you're always looking at the holographic breakdown and how much each of those cards are worth, but the bulk of the value is being made from commons in the first edition base set, alongside your holos. And when it comes to the PSA 10s as well, they're actually higher than the holos, which is pretty crazy, to be honest. So yeah, it's something that I found very intriguing when I was going through these numbers. But yeah, again, an average booster box. If you were to buy a base set first edition booster box and you had theoretically average pulls, but they were all PSA 9 quality, you'd get that 108,000. So slightly lower than Logan's specific booster box, but this shows you that he was pretty much bang on average for his pulls compared to what would theoretically be the pulls on an average booster box, which again I found surprising because of how high quality the holos he actually received are. But do bear in mind Logan's specific numbers as well as the average numbers. The Chansey is kind of off, and that offsets Logan's more than it offsets the average because of how many Logan got compared to the average. And for PSA 10s, if you have to get everything in PSA 10, an average box would be almost 400k. And That's basically how much Logan sold it for. Again, Logan-specific box, did very, very well, and even then, it's lower than the average. And also another thing to bear in mind, he got no Red Cheeks Pikachus, and that adds a lot to the common average value. So again, something I would bear in mind. I think Logan, by all means, had like a very, very good box. I think not many people would question that. There's a few things that he sort of whiffed on, like he only had a couple Charmeleons, only a couple Wartortles, no Lass. He had like a pretty high ratio of rare trainers compared to rare Pokemon, which can sometimes be a thing. But overall, like holos wise, at the very least, that's the thing that sticks out. And even like a high ratio of Pikachus compared to other commons, he did pretty well, I would say. Just eyeballing it. It was interesting to see as well, on average, you get way less trainer uncommons than Pokemon uncommons. So even though they go by the same rarity symbol, that's not always the case. So yeah, something I just thought was interesting, that there is like a sort of hidden rarity behind some of these cards. Same thing for the common trainers. The common trainers were much less common than the Pokemon on average. So yeah, like a hidden rarity within the actual notated Circle Diamond rare. But again, it's just one booster box. There are, you know, if we had more data to go off of, I'm also thinking about doing this for previous box openings that we have access to, like Pokerevs, and even older ones that are on various YouTube channels as well. I probably do want to go into this because, I don't know, I found this super interesting and I thought it was very cool. But this is the value that I think is most pertinent and most important to look at, and that's taking into account that PSA crossover between what are 10s, what are 9s, what we could actually expect to get from a booster box. And the breakdown is here. $206,405 is pretty much, if you're to go off of the pop reports at least, what you could reasonably hope for the value of a first edition booster box to be if you were to break every single card out of that box and grade every single one of those cards. So I thought, again, that was super interesting because a lot of people had like their minds blown by that $200,000 price point set by Logan, but it's pretty bang on where we are. Like I would not be surprised if people do their research on their own for this sort of thing. Like realistically, you're not far off that. Like Logan got to 190 basically, with very good pulls on the holo side. So you could think there'll be a number of boxes that will be less than this and probably around that 150 mark. Like any first edition base box that misses the Charizard, they are realistically like killed. Like they immediately lose 20k, like just straight out of the gate, I would say. So that is something to bear in mind. And obviously a lot of it sits on which cards get the 10s and which get the 9s. Like you could have the good level of variance on your like your Abras, and then most of your Bulbasaurs hit 9s and not the 10s, and that has a bigger disparity than if the Abra's got the 10s and the Bulbasaur's got the 9s, you know. So all this sort of theory is still just a guide, and you know, it's by no means giving you the full details. I would love, just for a sort of social experiment, if someone actually did grade a full box. I think that would be like the coolest thing, to actually get their number crunches on all of that stuff. But anyways, we're going to jump over to the people who actually bought the packs themselves now and look at how happy and how sad each of them should be realistically. So we started off with Ando, Unlisted Leaf. He got himself Psychic Water, Energy Removal, Magnemite, Nidoran Male, Diglett, Abra. His uncommons were Dugong, Super Potion, and Arcanine. I love Arcanine. I think that's my favorite uncommon outside of the starters. And the rare was Electabuzz to kick things off. You can see that the pack price I've put here. I've also put the grading cost, again, flat rate, $10 a card. And I've put a PSA 9 price for all of the cards here. And I've also put a PSA 10 price. And even if Ando was able to get 10s across the board on his booster pack, he would still be down almost $8,000, which is pretty rough, right? Thinking about getting like every single card in a 10, like the highest quality possible. Basically, it's just the commons. The quality of his commons was so weak that it just really, really eats into that value. I'm going to do just some of the highlights. For the most part, like the long story short is there was only 8 people who could theoretically be well off out of their pack openings. One of them was Poker Wizard 96. He was the first holo pull that we saw from the box. The Venusaur holographic. If Venusaur comes back a 10, he makes $3,300. Which is on that one pack. He actually bought 2 packs, and the other one, if everything comes back a 10, would be a minus. So realistically, even if he gets a 10 on the Venusaur, he may only break even. But even pulling a Venusaur, if the whole pack gets 9s, he's still at like a 5k loss, which is pretty disgusting when you think you get the 3rd best card available in the pack. Again, Venusaur's price is far beyond the 7-4, so I'm sure he makes a lot more out of it if he actually does get that 10, and this could be more close to a 9 price these days, to be honest. So, again, going back to the Pokemon price thing, don't shoot me if you think these values are like strictly wrong, and maybe it makes everything look way harsher. I think the Chanseys definitely look supremely harsh. Poker Wizard was also able to pull that Chansey. And yeah, like if he gets a 10, there's no way it goes for less than 5,000. So he'd actually be in the green for both of those packs. So do bear in mind that the chances are there. So yeah, poor old Graded Gem, my lads. They had one of the weakest packs of the box, where even if everything gets a 10 again, they're in deep 7k loss at best case scenario as it is right now. And again, it comes down to really them not getting any key trainer card, key common cards, and even their uncommons were not ideal, to be honest. And when you get a trainer rare, that's always going to hurt quite a bit. There are some trainer rares like Lass, which can outperform rare Pokemon cards, but in general, Pokemon go for higher than the trainer counterparts, just because there's a bigger market for it, right? More people want to complete the Pokedex kind of thing for a showpiece than people want to physically complete the whole set of First Ed base. There's just a bigger market for it. Again, the Chansey for Joey and Brandon here, they're in the hole even if it's a PSA 10, but realistically, they're probably all right if that does actually come back a 10. Kevin Teller, Pap Latte, he was the only person to feel very, very good about himself, as he did pull a first edition base set Charizard, even if his Charizard comes back a 9, and I don't want to be a downer, but the centering was off on a lot of the holographics, so it's more likely a 9 than a 10. Even if that Charizard comes back a 9, he is pretty happy with himself. He's made 10k just like immediately, and if it does get back that 10, pretty insane stuff. Now, obviously right now, I've just got a highest and lowest case possibility for the most part. Most people are going to meet somewhere in the middle for these sorts of cards because, you know, a number of their commons and a number of their uncommons, even their rare and stuff, it could be a 10, it could be a 9. It's going to be a mixture of the two. I've thought about doing the sort of actual air quotes value for each of these, but I think when it's just 11 cards, you're either hitting those 9s or 10s. I don't think it's such a small sample size that like a theoretical value actually doesn't provide much. That's just my personal opinion, but yeah. I could have done the 3rd value, which was like somewhere in between these, but I think just naturally eyeballing this stuff, you can probably understand that we're going in between for the most part for these sorts of things. Interesting that you can get holographic packs like Poliwrath that still puts you in pretty bad shape, especially if it gets that 9. Like this being a holographic pack and even pulling a Pikachu, and it could still be one of the worst packs. Again, Poliwrath isn't going to sell for less than 4 figures right now. Again, I'm going to blame Pokemon price on that one. But I still think it's pretty funny that you can get a holographic from your pack and still be like deep in a bad spot, which is pretty wild, and that's true for a lot of the holographics just by the price points set for these booster packs. So yeah, other sort of winners of the lottery would be the Raichu. Again, very good shape if you're able to get a 10 on that one for Adam OB. Vinny was able to get the first Blastoise of the night, and they'd be in very, very strong shape. What I also found very interesting was that Lachlan Power would be able to make money on his booster pack despite getting a devolution spray as his rare, and that just is because his commons were absolutely busted. He got Bulbasaur, Pikachu, and Squirtle, so yeah, commons is where the value really is at for base set, and I think this could bring about an increase in light packs of first edition base, because when you look at the value, like, you can make your, like, obviously if you hit holo, you're gonna have a higher chance of making your value, but commons and uncommons, mostly commons, can be insane. Same thing for Jeff, Mike, Evan, and Milton, some of the Logan Paul's crew. They're pretty much able to break even if they get full 10s on their stuff, and that's surprising to me because there's like no good cards from this pack except for that Wartortle. Wartortle is the lowest chance uncommon to hit that PSA 10. If we jump over to Wartortle, it's a flat 20% to get a PSA 10. So most of the time you're just hitting that 9. But if those guys are able to get that 1 in 5, they are super duper happy, because this goes for a higher value than a lot of the holographic cards in the set. So yeah, it's basically them completely crossing their fingers on Wartortle. But if that is able to hit the 10 grade, they break even immediately, which is cool. Other winning packs, FaZe K was able to pull a Dragonair, again a non-holographic pack. So there's 3 packs of non-holographics that were able to at least break even if they hit their 10s. If they hit their 9s, they're all slaughtered. Like, if Jeff, Mike, Evan, and Milton, if they get 9s across the board on their pack, they are killed. They are 10k in the hole. But if they get 10s, they break even. So this shows you the power of condition. It really, really does. Again, FaZe, if he's able to get 10s across the board, he's got, again, a Wartortle that he's trying to sit on. It's all or nothing on Wartortle. He's got a Squirtle in there as well. It could be a good bit of value. Dragonair, obviously the best rare that you can get if it's a non-holo, just for value for the most part, but also just it looks so much better than the rest, in my opinion. It's gorgeous artwork, a very well respected rare card from the set. It's like winning out of the losers, but it's still winning in a sense. And the final winning pack is Mr. Beast, who was able to pull the second Blastoise of the evening, and his pack honestly was, again, just very strong based on that based on the Blastoise alone. So yeah, very, very cool stuff there. A lot of other people didn't quite hit the numbers that they wanted to. Collectibles Guru, who was there on the night, he was able to pull a Bulbasaur, so in theory he's 20k up, right? But in actuality, not doing so hot. Randolph didn't do great on his booster pack. We also saw Pokerev. He's obviously opened his own first edition booster box, did a break of it himself this year, I believe it was, towards the beginning of the year. He had a pretty rough pack, got Imposter Professor Oak, which isn't doing anyone any favors. We saw as well some other big names getting involved. Tons of people. Graded Gem as well. Graham Stefan, Gary Vanderchuk, or Vaynerchuk, I can never say his surname. All got involved. None of them had the best luck of the evening. Even Logan's physical pack as well. Probably one of the worst of the night, surprisingly. Well, not surprisingly, just unfortunately for him, right? He got some absolutely bog commons. He didn't get any help from the uncommons either. Got himself one of the 3 Clefairy that were pulled on the evening, and yeah, he basically is in deep with that pack. But I don't think he'll feel too bad about it because of what a great event that he was able to put on. And yeah, honestly, such great exposure for the hobby. Like, this is the most wholesome part of the hobby, just everyone enjoying the excitement of packs. Like, yes, it's gambling when it's this amount of money on the line, but man, I can just imagine the excitement. I mean, even I was getting hyped when cards were being sort of picked up and stuff, and when you see names that you know as well, there's that extra bit of like hope that they do well. And man, it was just a really, really awesome occasion. So I do implore you to watch back. Even if you watched it once, I'm going to be watching it again. Like, I've gone over this with a fine-tooth comb just to see every single individual card, but I want to enjoy it again just for the actual experience, because who knows the next time when we're going to have something like this, especially one that's going to be so community driven, where it's a box break. Yes, the sort of price point was the reason why there were so many big names involved, which is kind of good and bad, because other people, you can root for these sorts of people just because you know them, but having a more accessible box next time would also be like really awesome. Just something to bear in mind. Obviously, this price point, I don't think we'll see that again in the immediate future for a booster box like this, unless it's someone of Logan's sort of ilk, where they have that much draw. A lot of people were buying these booster packs in the first place for more than just trying to hit their values, obviously. People were trying to do it as, you know, marketing, being part of the community, just a celebration, even just the experience of having a booster pack opened, you know, all that sort of stuff. Even just trying to help out with the charity as well. All of that sort of stuff is all ingrained. So I don't feel bad. Well, I mean, I feel bad for some of the people who lost a lot of money on this sort of stuff, but they all knew that they were overpaying for these cards for the experience, and that's just sort of par for the course. So yeah, honestly, really thank everyone who got involved and actually bought the packs. Really thankful to Logan, who actually had the idea to sort of do this thing in the first place. Really created a lot of talking points for a lot of people in the hobby, and for all the new people as well who have recently joined the hobby this year, they've probably just seen like one of the coolest experiences I've ever seen, and I've been here, you know, for like 15 years in the hobby. So yeah, honestly, I just have so much to say about this. Let me know what you guys think about the numbers. Would you like me to go any further into these numbers? Do you think there's something I could do differently with the methodology? I'd also like to listen to that. What do you guys think the next sale of a first edition booster box will be? Who do you think did the best? Who do you think did the worst? What booster pack do you think you would have got if you had tried this? You're going to start looking towards getting your own first edition pack based off of this. What do you think, guys? I'll hear it all down below. Hope you did enjoy. As you can see, I have a bunch of other tabs for similar breakdowns because I love delving into spreadsheets. It's something that I just do all the time. So if you did enjoy this video, let me know with a like and a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I know this is very different to the usual content that you can see on the channel, but it's something that I am still extremely passionate about, and hopefully have a decent amount of knowledge in this area as well. So I will sort of weave these in when I get the chance. When I get the urge to get something off my chest, I will do so. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.